This week we're gonna continue on with the last video. It was a bit controversial and I did it a bit on purpose, and I wanted to test the waters on how much hate I would get calling out cheap watches. I just wanted to do that just to show what's going on in the market and how much people, how much do they stick to their guns knowing what they know, okay? And it's really fun. I'm taking YouTube a bit seriously, yes, but at the same time I want to have feedback from people and I want to see what they're doing, where they're heading, make them think, make them react. Not in a bad way. I never took any of those things personally, but at the same time what I'm judging is the fact that people have those spending habits that are repetitive, where you're gonna end up with improper or bad ways of buying watches. I understand not a lot of people have a lot of money to spend on watches, and it's cool. That's not my point. And I always tell people, if you want to wait, you can wait, you can get a better watch that you're gonna hold for a long time. Obviously, let's see right here, I just got the Underdogs. They're brand new. A customer of mine went a bit bananas. You know who you are. It's a very good customer of mine. He does have higher end watches and he did like the Underdogs. So this is the watermelon. What can I say about the watermelon? Again, it's a really nice design. We were talking about many things last week, about all those cheap watches that don't really make sense. And anyway, to me, they don't make sense in a collection to actually have 10 of them or 20 of them, okay? But let's say like the watermelon. It's one of those really cool little watches. It's very trendy. But what's cool is that you see, you're buying something that's trendy, something that's really cohesive right now. But looking on the long term, a seagull movement, I don't think it's something that's gonna be serviceable, on the long term. If they do upgrade the movement or they do something in the long run to replace that movement, it's going to be very hard. And that's why I'm not going against you. I'm with you, and I want to give you the best advice possible on the long run. So I'm never going to be bringing anyone down because they are buying something cheap, but I just want them to know what they're buying. For example, yesterday a guy came in with an Omega that he bought for 100 euros in France. He comes here, he's like, let's change the battery, find me links for this. I'm like, dude, I haven't seen that little Omega in my whole life. It has like specific 7mm links or 8mm links, and you have to change the battery. We changed the battery, it doesn't work. He basically threw down the drain 100 euros. With a bit more money, you can buy, even if it's a vintage watch, you can buy something that's going to be serviceable. I know services are not cheap. Watchmakers are not easy to find. Even myself, I have problems right now. Not yet, but let's say my watchmaker is 75. He's really doing an amazing job. I get very little returns. But the few times I get returns, I'm fully responsible and I'm always going to take care of it. As a business, if I buy this watch again in 5 years from now, I do have to give a warranty to my customers. As dealers, we are the ones who are going to be stuck with that inventory and say that we have to give you a 2-year warranty. Well, for me, it's counterproductive to actually buy such a watch and tell you, look, it's going to cost me on a chronograph at least $500 Canadian, roughly 350 USD. That's the bare minimum on a chronograph with all the parts involved. So you have to actually be able not to break any of those parts. You have to be careful. But if it's counterproductive to actually just service it and take out the movement, throw it in the bin and just buy another one for $150, I'm really sorry, but it's an insult to this whole industry. And to say that, hey, I'm just taking a movement and throw it in the bin and we change it, why would it be mechanical? Why have a mechanical movement? Why be proud of having a mechanical movement that you're going to throw away in 5 or 10 or 20 years from now, depending on how lucky you are and how long it's going to work and how long it's going to keep time? And that's my whole point. Look, I'm buying those watches. I do deal with entry-level Seikos, with, in this case, the Watermelon, the Steffi Blue, and right here, the variant of the gray chrono, which is the variant of the watermelon. I don't mean any harm to anyone. I just mean to help you out. They're really cool watches. I just bought 4 of them. It just proves how the market is. Right now, those watches are worth some money because they're made in limited editions. I do understand if you want to change the movement, it's pretty easy right now, but I'm always looking on the long term, okay? If you're collecting, you cannot just say, I'm collecting for 5 years and I'm done, It's always on the long term. Going back to what people said last week, I really wanted this. I really want your feedback, maybe positive or negative, just because it's just showing the habits of collecting, of purchasing, of what you guys are doing. And I mean to have that relation with people where people give me feedback, where people tell me what they want. And some people actually even told me I'm gonna throw the watch away if it doesn't work. I'm in the business of recycling, of bringing, I don't know, a 1950s watch. And we're gonna talk about this one later. But bringing back a 1950s Rolex back to the market and telling you, hey, you know what? We're able to service it. We're able to actually clean up the dial, change the crystal without any problem within a few days, and you're good to go for another 5, 10 years. Am I going to be able to do that with a Chinese movement? Maybe not. I'm not in this business for the past 30 days or a year or whatever. I've been collecting for 27 years, and the fun part about this whole thing is that you're going through history. Okay, what's a watermelon for you now? Right now it's a really funky little thing that's limited. Very few people can get them. I like the concept. I like everything about it. The one thing that I don't like is people saying that they're going to throw this away because the movement is not going to be possible to find. And that's not what we want in this industry. I am dealing with history. If you want fast food, you can go to McDonald's, you can go somewhere else. But with me, I'm fascinated about history. A lot of people come to me talking to me about their heirloom, okay? Doesn't matter what it's gonna cost to repair. Why am I holding this watch? I've been talking in my previous videos about my grandma's watch. She's been wearing this watch for 50 years. What's the value to you guys? Maybe $20, okay? 30 bucks, 50 bucks, whatever it is. To me, invaluable, okay? It could be any amount of money. I'm not gonna hand this watch to anyone else. She was like my second mother, and she passed away last year. So for me, I'm getting really personal into this because you have to understand from where I'm coming, so you guys understand how valuable for me my job is into portraying the watches as they come after so many years, okay? Using those objects for a little time in our lives. Most of the people, they're gonna buy a watch, it stops working, they just put it in a drawer and forget it. I end up buying those watches, and all those watches are gonna end up back on the market. All that cycle, okay? Of people being interested is very important, because without the support, without the people that are actually helping this business, and without something that's actually more than, you know, I call this fast food in a way, even though it's super cool, I like it, I like the design, but I just find it's not something that's gonna last for 100 years, which I don't think it's meant to. We're gonna be destroying the whole planet. We're gonna be looking way behind us and we're gonna say, well, what have we done? I don't want to be that guy who says, hey, you know what? I've thrown a bunch of stuff in my life and I've just wasted and wasted and wasted. I am conscious of what I'm doing on the planet, okay? And I think that I want to portray that to you guys. And watches is just a small thing. They're minimal, but they do create a lot of pollution. Look, we're shipping watches all the time. Just moving a little watch like this that costs 50 bucks. Sometimes you're gonna pollute just as much as the value of the watch itself, or even more, just by the transport and everything. We can't just say we forget about the history, we leave it behind. I've had that in the past where people don't really care about that. They're in the instantaneous. And it's okay with me. You can do whatever you want. But I just want you to know that you're not being judged. But the reality is, certain things are not gonna last, okay? Since 2002 up to now, the market has changed tremendously, not price-wise. I'm talking about people that are invested, people that want to know, people that want to give as well information about what we're doing. We have more information now than we ever did. Yet I find that customers are the least informed that they ever were, including supposedly dealers or people that are getting into the market. If you read about anything, about a 1680, a Constellation, about anything, you're gonna look at different things, and you're gonna read. There's plenty of forums. There's plenty of different things. I understand you want to ease your way into, okay, I want to buy a vintage watch. It's easy and I move on and that's it. But at the same time, you have to be a bit interested into that watch. Like myself, I take a pride into telling you, hey, you know what? That crystal on my vintage Constellation has been replaced. Other dealers, they're just gonna try and sell you something that's half-assed. It's not a proper way of doing your job, okay? And I take pride in my job, and that's what I want to portray and give back to you guys. Beyond what you see as a watch, beyond the manufacture process, the value, the history and everything, you're also adding to the history of the watch. Even if you buy a brand new watch or a vintage watch, It's a conversation starter. People are really enjoying talking about watches. How many times have I been traveling and open a conversation saying, hey, nice watch, and then we just talked about watches, and people end up calling me down the road and just sharing their passion about watches. But we're all in the same boat. You like watches, you gotta know about watches. And that's what I'm trying to give you back as well. Having started a conversation about cheaply made watches, again, cheap is not price. A cheaply made watch can be extremely expensive. And I think I kind of made my point last week. But all of that said, it's very important that you actually participate and understand my process of thinking and what I've been through before to actually get where I am today, to actually spread that message of you can get a cheaper in terms of price watch that's much more favorable in terms of quality than it is in terms of just the looks. Okay, I just want to open up your mind about all of this. And all of that said, let's move on to this week's finds. So now we're at the juicy part. Okay, I ranted enough. I wanted to make my point, but now we're getting to the really interesting stuff. So going with something that's really cool that I just got this week. This is the Muhle. I don't know if you see it well in the pictures, but it's a almost kind of field watch with a wide dial. It has an ETA movement, pretty basic, and we're talking about something that's sturdy, something that's really everyday. I think that's a really cool piece. And any variant of an ETA movement, a Swiss-made watch, is actually very, very well regarded, and they're easy to service. Calculate maybe if you have a proper watchmaker, maybe a few $100 more or less, and he should give you a good warranty there. They're pretty easy to work on, workhorses. They're gonna last forever. And this one is really cool with its green loom hands and the regular Arabic numerals. I really, really enjoyed this one. When I saw this, I was like, I really gotta have it. No one really knows what it is unless you're really looking into it. Let's go with something that's really cool that I haven't had maybe in, I'd say maybe a year and a half, a proper one. And now I have two, okay, from the same gentleman, big Tudor collector. So you're gonna see a bunch of Tudors appearing on the website soon. That's part of them. This one does have box and papers. No, it has the papers, and this one is naked, but it's super cool. The Bakelite is perfect. Bracelet, although it was a bit polished, the case is pretty good, and it looks pretty fabulous. This one has a magnificent patina on the Bakelite bezel, on the dial itself, and it's perfect for a small guy who has a tiny wrist, or a lady. I find those mini subs really gorgeous. They're miniature but really delicate, and at the same time very sturdy. So I just enjoy looking at those. The second one, I think this one is 73 190. This one is even in a better condition. Black dial with a sapphire crystal. Condition is really good. Has the hang tag, has the papers again, and same thing. It's just a perfect patina. The bezel is near perfect. It has maybe one or two little marks, but in general, it has been hardly worn. And again, having a watch with a hang tag kind of proves that the person has stored it for a while, and believe me, that's the way I got it with the hang tag. Something that I really enjoyed this week and I'm really fond of was, I have three of them that are really interesting. I'll start with the juicier one maybe of the lot. This is a, I think 168005 or 015 reference. I didn't list it yet. I'm gonna be listing it on eBay and the website quite quickly. The case back was not polished at all from what I can tell. The case obviously has a bit of wear, but what's cool is that when I got it, the crystal was cracked. I did replace the crystal with an aftermarket crystal. I'm not able to get Omega crystals for this particular one right now through my suppliers. Eventually, if I do, I can always replace it down the road for the next buyer, or just provide it to him, no worries. What's cool about this one is that the dial is extremely rare. Okay, when I got it, the crystal was cracked. There was a lot of dust on the dial, so I kind of bought it blindly, okay, thinking, oh, it's a heavy patina. Everything was super dusty and was almost yellow. And when I used the Rodico to actually clean it off, I was just amazed, and I posted about it on my Instagram. So what's cool? crown is original, dial is original, the hands, everything except the crystal. And what's cool about the dial is the black matte gilt dial with, I don't know if you see it. We're gonna try to take really good pictures of this, but there's a track between the sides of the dial and the top of the dial, which is honeycomb. And then you have the track, which is extremely rare on those. And then you have the regular black dial around it. The black part around it has a few little marks, but in general, it's very, very clean for the age. And that's something that, again, regardless of the price, regardless of what it is, that's a really rare watch. And it's, I think, one of the prettiest constellations I've had the chance to own so far. I'm gonna stick with the early watches, and this is a reference. I have to check. This one has a really special dial that actually aged in a green pattern, and what's really amazing about it is that the pattern is not a honeycomb. It's actually square, and it's almost a basket weaving pattern overall, marking a decade of really intensive design tactics and different trials by Rolex. Also, all the markers are sunken, including the Rolex on the dial. It's just, I think, one of the prettiest 34 millimeters I've owned. I just have nothing else to say about this one. Just the fact that it resisted so long. The one thing about it, most probably, that was replaced and repainted, or I think repainted, is the seconds hand in red. I do have some blue ones. I did want to keep this one the way it was. If someone does request me to change that hand, I will do it, and I think I have original ones for those. Overall condition of the case is really good for the time, and I'm just fond of this watch. I think it's the coolest watch in the Rolexes that I've had in the past maybe 3-4 months. Regardless, again, of the value, of how rare the watch is, or the intricate value, it's still one of the coolest ones out there. One cool thing right now, you know that Universal Geneve has some kind of a revival with Omega, and they started this month, I think a couple of weeks ago, talking about their pole routers and how they were gonna use some vintage new old stock movements versus some of the modernized ones that are going to be made, and they're going to use their in-house movement. This is an era of back from the 80s, early 90s, where those Compax chronographs were using Lemania 1873 movements, and I do realize that a lot of people were hating on them. Even myself, when I saw them maybe years ago, even 5-10 years ago, when I was seeing them, I'm like, you know, like, it's so much more attractive to actually own the original thing from the 40s and the 50s. I have a few in my collection, but actually owning one of those right now in such a good condition, the fact that the company is reviving, the fact that Frank Muhle, with the same movement, that's, yes, it's a bit more decorated, they modified a few things, they added, you know, color to a few wheels, but like, the base movement is the same. Yes, it is an unadjusted movement, but overall it's ticking all my boxes in terms of design, in terms of, you know, the size, the bezel that kind of resembles any Speedmaster out there, even the early Speedmasters, the 2915s, including even the vintage Daytonas. It's super cool. I have nothing to say about this other than I think they're going to become really interesting down the road, even though they're pretty affordable. I think we're going to list this one for under 3,000 US, around like the 2,750 US on the website. So have a look at this. I think it's a really good buy down the road, especially for the fact that people are realizing now how much Lemania has added to the value of the history and the history of watches in general, including Patek, including Omega, including Tissot, and so many other brands, including Universal Geneve. I'm gonna end up the week with a couple of little watches. One of them that was in my private collection. This one does come with papers. I did find another 5513 that was taking a few more cases than this one in terms of looks, in terms of patina. So this one, even though this one has the papers and it's really clean, including bezel insert, that's still pretty good. I mean, I really enjoy this one, and I enjoyed it, but honestly, I'm gonna be preferring just the new one that I got. So it's just a matter of personal preference. Original dial, original hands, not touched. I think so. The top lugs have not been polished, but I think the signs have been touched up in the past. But overall, very honest watch. And the last but not least, a Subdate 1680, 1970s. This one did come with a bracelet, but sadly the bracelet, I did remove it off the watch. It was pretty horrible, so I just decided to put it on a leather band. What I'm going to do with this one is going to be around $10,000 US. The dial is gorgeous. I've looked at it quite a bit. I was thinking I was seeing some kind of defect at some point near the center, but that was just an effect from, I think, a little dust on the outside. And the dial is really actually perfect. I just looped it again because I know where I was kind of trying to find something, but overall the insert is a kissing 40, or really touching 40 in this case. So you're going to see the 4 and the 0 are touching, which means that it is a fat font, and it's the Mark III insert, which is correct for the period. Really cool watch. It does give you a lot of pleasure to wear one of those if you're tired of wearing a newer Rolex. I think it's the one watch that right now is really undervalued in the market, and it's one of the most iconic looks from the time. I want to end this video, guys, with a big thank you. Thank you for all the support. I was never thinking I was, having the courage to actually do videos and everything. And honestly, I'm doing this to educate you guys, to give a bit of my experience, to give a bit of what I've been doing for the past couple of decades, even though originally it wasn't really a business. I was doing this as a passion. I never really had a lot of money back then. My parents are immigrants. You can tell I'm an immigrant in Canada too. And I do enjoy doing this for an educational purpose. Please write to me privately if you do have any concerns about certain watches, if you do want to know more. But I'm going to leave you guys to actually share what you like, what you want. And if you do like what I'm doing, just subscribe and please like the video.